We're good.
Here we go. Welcome to 8 Things, where we tear apart websites to see what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong on their homepages. My name is Justin Davis, here with Chris Klaus. We're looking at the Duncan duo today in Tampa. Chris, let's dive in and take a look here, starting with the hero.
Yeah, so looking at the hero, it's a little busy, I think. Some of the text could be a little bit easier to read, but generally, I don't hate it because it really does emphasize the fact that they're local. Tampa Bay Lightning, the pictures on the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're proud to partner with the Bulls, and it's very clear that, they're talking about the guaranteed home sale from the logo to the copy, even the nav and the secondary calls to action you can actually see from the hero.
Yep, I agree. I think the language is really strong. The background is a little bit busy. Good calls to action. Overall, 7 out of 10 on the hero here. Let's move on to secondary call to action. Our secondary calls to action out on the page. We've got these 3 items here. We also have this footer area, which has these 3 things: call, sell your home, and set appointment. I mean, honestly, this is done pretty well.
I couldn't agree more. I love floating calls to action, especially on a site like this. It's probably the nicest I've seen. And even without scrolling through the rest of the site and looking for additional calls to action, just those 3 on the bottom, I would give it a 10 out of 10.
Yep, I have to agree with that. I think this is done pretty well. Let's look at the navigation here. Now, I have some issues with this navigation, right? This navigation, I think it's in the wrong place. I mean, it's not in the wrong place. It's up in there at the top, but it's so small and you almost miss it. You can't really tell that it's there. I also have an issue with some of the labels that they're using here. Overall, there's some weird things with text getting cut off in the navigation. There's this utility navigation that's blended in with the main nav. It just sort of feels a little bit like a mess to me.
I agree. I will say that I do like the idea of like secondary calls to action being buried in the nav, the call with the number or the guaranteed home sale, which is such a tight, part of the rest of their messaging. But there's too many options. The navs are cut off. You're mixing like normal search navs with like almost application navs with like a saving concept. It's kind of all over the place. Unfortunately, I like parts of it, but it's probably the worst nav I've seen.
Yeah, I agree. And the labels are kind of weak. I don't love the labels that they're using aside from the guaranteed home sale, which obviously helps in terms of brands. So yeah, navigation, I think we didn't score a secondary CTA up. We're going to go 10 out of 10 on that one. Navigation is a different story. I think it's a 3.
I tend to agree.
Let's look at the copy and narrative down the page here, and how well are they telling a story and supporting it with good copy?
Well, as David Olivier says, your titles are 80% of your copy, right? And 80% of your ad budget. So I think their titles are fairly good. Sell your home with ease, the guaranteed sale. Some of these sell your home. Now it starts to get a little weaker. As you go through this, the font's really small. It's hard to read. You're not taking good advantage of, like secondary H2s or H3s or headings in normal speak. This block of text, it's called what you get giant block, giant wall of text. Those are never good. It's too long across. Humans actually can't read that many characters across. It's basically SEO stuffing or something. Not in love with that. So I would say, they're in the middle. Like they start good in some areas, they go weak in other areas, but their non-call to action, their non-heading text, I would say is pretty weak.
Yeah.
And it detracts from the rest of it. I don't know. What's your thought?
Yeah, I think the same thing, right? It starts pretty quick. It's got a great, back to this guaranteed sale thing. Like they keep going over that. That's clear, right? Like we understand that part of the brand now. Like totally get it. I think my comments mirror your comments, which is start strong, super weak middle, kind of weak end. It's probably just barely getting over the average mark. And you have these big kind of copy block problems. 6 out of 10 on the copy, I think. You good with that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say the narrative is really strong, but the copy is weak. And so, yeah, I agree.
Yep. For sure. Let's look at social proof now. How are they using social proof? Now, this is something that's interesting because they are actually using some social proof on the website, right? So we have some things like testimonials, right? We've got this thing, which is a a piece that was made by a radio station. We've got this, which is a video of a bunch of testimonials. We've got some testimonials down here. So clearly there is some social proof here on the site.
I I I commend them for having social proof. Now, the question becomes the treatment of the social proof. I think the treatment is weak. The titles and subtitles are weak. They're not grouped very well. Too long versus like nice chunks, small segments. Some quotes would be great, which they do have in the Zillow box, but if they spend a little bit of time on just collapsing this, they would get twice the benefit of it and half the space.
Yeah, I think that's a really great call out, right? Because they're kind of doing it right. They have the right intention, but so much of that value is getting lost in design. Chop this up into little 15-second testimonial videos, put a little carousel of them or a little band of them, pull those Zillow testimonials out and make them bigger and chunkier and carousel them or something. So yeah, I completely agree. I think the intent is really good here about using social proof, and they've obviously done a lot to gather that social proof, just missing the mark in terms of how they actually do it. So we're going to go with a 7 out of 10 here, I think, on that. Few points off on treatment, but otherwise the intent is really good. So let's go and look now about how this thing collapses down to mobile. Guys, it's got to work on mobile. You got to have this right. So let's take a look here. The first thing I noticed right out of the gate, back to our hero, is this copy overlapping with the image on the back. You can almost not read this headline. For somebody who has vision impairment or something like that, this is really going to be a nightmare. So I don't love that part of the mobile treatment.
I don't love the footer calls to action, the secondary calls to action. I love having them, but again, it's the treatment that's the issue. If they just blopped it into a single bar, a thin bar that had, let's say, a phone icon, an appointment icon, and then still the text for sell your home, you'd have all three. They wouldn't be as obnoxious. On a real phone, this would be a problem.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Yep, really designed incorrectly down here. I get wanting to make the call to action great, but not great. The only other one thing I want to point out on this is the treatment of the menu. This is a train wreck of a menu to me on menu or on mobile, because we've got this site menu that is now buried as a secondary level of navigation. Guys, this is absolutely not the right way to do this.
Oof, on the one hand, it's responsive. So like that almost makes you a 5 out of 10 by itself, but then every treatment beyond that is not good.
Yep.
So I couldn't go personally beyond a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think we'll go 5 out of 10. Some of the things are working well. Some of the things really need some help. So let's go on here to our last couple things that we're going to judge this site on. The next thing is going to be overall look and feel here. And let's see how they're doing. I mean, my perspective on look and feel here is that, there's some parts, there's some parts that are kind of fine. There's a lot of, to me, jankiness. These kind of randomly sized headers, these chunks of text, the odd space. When I was in architecture school, we would call this space dead cat space, because you can't do anything but throw a dead cat into that space. It's just absolutely wasted space, right? And so I don't love these elements from a look and feel standpoint, because it just feels like it was amateurly put together. It doesn't feel like somebody took some care in putting this site together.
I tend to agree, and I'll go even further. The look and feel, part of that goes into that is like the weird, hey, we're hiring box in the middle of the homepage. It doesn't really belong on your homepage. It takes away from the brand and the quality and the look and feel. So,
Yep.
I would say look and feel. Like, again, I like the carousels in the bottom. I kind of like, parts of the hero, and I like the secondary call to action, things we've all discussed. Those parts are good, but the actual large block of content, not so good.
Yeah. 5 out of 10
5 out of 10
on look and feel. Absolutely correct. And then finally, brand. How are they doing positioning their brand and getting the brand narrative correct here?
I love the brand. The fact that they have the official real estate agents of the Tampa Bay Lightning, the proud, partner of USF. Obviously, if you've lived in the Tampa area, you've seen ads for them. The guaranteed sale, it's all wrapped around that. I think the brand is probably the strongest part of the website, even though the website itself might not be that strong.
Yeah, this is a great example where, if you take that look and feel 5 out of 10 and you up that to an 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 by doing some things here, but keep what you're doing with the brand, this thing could absolutely slay. The bones are here. Just the treatment kind of leaves a little bit desired, but I've got to agree with you. I think the narrative is really strong there. I think we got to go something like 8 out of 10 on the brand here.
I tend to agree.
Awesome. So that is a quick run through of the Duncan duo here and what they're doing on their website. Total score a 51 out of 80 possible points here on this site. Honestly, a little lower than I would have expected out of the gate.
I tend to agree. When we pulled up their site, it's like, hey, we know who these people are. So I would have expected a little bit better, especially since their advertising tends to be fairly good. So I think it's just a matter of, time and focus, and just a couple of little things will really take it to the next level.
Yep. Completely agree. Thank you guys for tuning in here as we look through and tear apart the Duncan Duos website. Hope you learned something. Remember, there are 8 things you can do on your site, and you can always do them a little bit better to make things work better. We hope you enjoyed this and learned a few things. We'll see you soon.
And if you need our help, feel free to ask us.